Sylvester and the Magic Pebble is a great book, and it's perfect for us to use for making predictions. Every now and then throughout the book, you'll see a video of me, and I'll ask you to pause your video and make a prediction. So let's get started. You'll listen to a part of the story, and then you'll stop and make a prediction in your journal. So if you don't have your journal, get your journal and have it with you, okay? Sylvester and the Magic Pebble by William Steig. Sylvester Duncan lived with his mother and father at Acorn Road in Oatsdale. One of his hobbies was collecting pebbles of unusual shape and color. On a rainy Saturday during vacation, he found a quite extraordinary one. It was flaming red, shiny, and perfectly round like a marble. As he was studying this remarkable pebble, he began to shiver, probably from excitement, and the rain felt cold on his back. "I wish it would stop raining," he said. Okay, at this point, I want you to stop your video, pause your video after I finish talking, and I want you to make a prediction about what's going to happen next. So we know that Sylvester Duncan lives with his parents at home and that he loves to collect pebbles of unusual size, shape, color, and one day during vacation, he finds a very unusual pebble. So what do you think is going to happen when he picks up that pebble and holds it and says, "I wish it would stop raining"? So in your journal, you need to write the title Sylvester and the Magic Pebble because, hold on just a minute, let me fix this. Because otherwise I won't know what story you're writing about. So make sure you give it a title so that even you can go back and look at that page. So we're going to predict what happens next. He holds this pebble and he says, "I wish it would stop raining." Well, I'm going to guess that one of two things. My prediction is either it's going to stop raining or nothing is going to happen, or maybe it's going to rain a lot more. So I'm going to guess that nothing is going to happen. So I'm going to say, okay, I wrote the title, Sylvester and the Magic Pebble. I predict, don't forget to finger space, that after Sylvester makes his wish, nothing will happen. Now, I don't know if my prediction is going to be right or not. And if it's not right, that is perfectly fine. That's part of what we're doing here, what we're learning. If you make a prediction and then you read on to see if your prediction is correct or not, and it's not correct, then you're going to remember, "Oh man, I got that wrong." But if it is correct, that's also fine. Doesn't matter whether it's right or wrong, you're going to learn from it both ways, and you're going to remember the story better, okay? Now, the title of the story is Sylvester and the Magic Pebble, so that pebble must have some kind of magic in it. So then I want you to stop the video now and you make your prediction. You can agree with me or not. Then turn the video back on and I will continue reading, and you'll see whether your prediction was right or not. Okay? To his great surprise, the rain stopped. It didn't stop gradually, as rains usually do. It ceased. The drops vanished on the way down. The clouds disappeared. Everything was dry, and the sun was shining as rain had never existed. In all his young life, Sylvester had never had a wish gratified so quickly. It struck him that magic must be at work, and he guessed that the magic must be in the remarkable-looking red pebble, where indeed it was. To make a test, he put the pebble on the ground and said, "I wish it would rain again." Nothing happened, but when he said the same thing holding the pebble in his hoof, the sky turned black, there was lightning and a clap of thunder, and the rain came shooting down. "What a lucky day this is," thought Sylvester. "From now on, I can have anything I want. My father and mother can have anything they want. My relatives, my friends, and anybody at all can have everything anybody wants." He wished the sunshine back in the sky, and he wished a wart on his left hind fetlock would disappear, and it did. And he started home, eager to amaze his father and mother with his magic pebble. He could hardly wait to see their faces. Maybe they wouldn't even believe him at first. As he was crossing Strawberry Hill, thinking of some of the many, many things he could wish for, he was startled to see a mean, hungry lion looking right at him from behind some tall grass. He was frightened. If he hadn't been so frightened, he could have made the lion disappear, or he could have wished himself safe at home with his father and mother. Okay, so now after this page, I want you to predict what you think Sylvester is going to do with the Magic Pebble, how he's going to use it in this case where he's frightened of the lion. What will he do to get out of this situation or to protect himself from this situation? So once again, you'll write in your journal and you'll say, "I predict that," and then you make your prediction, whatever it is. I predict that Sylvester will make the lion disappear, or Sylvester will cause the lion to be all wrapped up in a net, or whatever. Sylvester will cause the lion to run away. You think in your mind, your own idea, what you think is going to happen next, what he will do with that magic pebble. And once again, if it's wrong, it's okay. And if it's right, that's okay too. After you've written down your prediction, then you can resume the video and see if your prediction was right or not. He could have wished the lion would turn into a butterfly or a daisy or a goat. He could have wished many things, but he panicked and couldn't think carefully. "I wish I were a rock," he said, and he became a rock. The lion came bounding over, sniffed the rock, and 100 times walked around and around it and went away confused, perplexed, puzzled, and bewildered. "I saw that little donkey as clear as day. Maybe I'm going crazy," he muttered. And there was Sylvester, a rock on Strawberry Hill, with the magic pebble lying right beside him on the ground, and he was unable to pick it up. "Oh, how I wish I were myself again," he thought, but nothing happened. He had to be touching the pebble to make the magic work, but there was nothing he could do about it. His thoughts began to race like mad. He was scared and worried. Being helpless, he felt hopeless. He imagined all the possibilities, and eventually he realized that his only chance of becoming himself again was for someone to find the red pebble and to wish that the rock next to it would be a donkey. Someone would surely find the red pebble. It was so bright and shiny. But what on earth would make them wish that a rock were a donkey? The chance was 1 in a billion at best. Sylvester fell asleep. What else could he do? Night came with many stars. Meanwhile, back at home, Mr. and Mrs. Duncan paced the floor, frantic with worry. Sylvester had never come home later than dinner time. Where could he be? They stayed up all night wondering what had happened, expecting that Sylvester would surely turn up by morning. But he didn't, of course. Mrs. Duncan cried a lot, and Mr. Duncan did his best to soothe her. Both longed to have their dear son with them. I will never scold Sylvester again as long as I live," said Mrs. Duncan, "no matter what he does." At dawn, they went about inquiring of all the neighbors. Oh, poor Mr. and Mrs. Duncan. They are so sad that their baby boy is missing. They have not seen him since yesterday. He didn't come home last night. Your parents would be very worried if you didn't come home. They would also ask neighbors, and they would really be searching, trying to find you. So I want you to predict now what's going to happen with Sylvester's parents. And so you're going to continue writing in your journal. I predict that Sylvester's parents will they find him? Will they not find him? What will his parents do next? Or will they do anything next? Okay, use your imagination and remember that that pebble is magic, okay? Pause the video now and write your answer, your prediction. They talked to all the children, the puppies, the kittens, the colts, the piglets. No one had seen Sylvester since the day before yesterday. They went to the police. The police could not find their child. All the dogs in Oatsdale went searching for him. They sniffed behind every rock and tree and blade of grass, into every nook and gully of the neighborhood and beyond, but found not a scent of him. They sniffed the rock on Strawberry Hill, but it smelled like a rock. It didn't smell like Sylvester. After a month of searching the same places over and over again and inquiring of the same animals over and over again, Mr. and Mrs. Duncan no longer knew what to do. They concluded that something dreadful must have happened and that they would probably never see their son again, though all the time he was less than a mile away. They tried their best to be happy, to go about their usual ways, but their usual ways included Sylvester, and they were always reminded of him. They were miserable. Life had no meaning for them anymore. Night followed day, and day followed night over and over again. Sylvester on the hill woke up less and less often. When he was awake, he was only hopeless and unhappy. He felt he would be a rock forever, and he tried to get used to it. He went into an endless sleep. The days grew colder. Fall came with the leaves changing color. Then the leaves fell and the grass bent to the ground. Then it was winter. The winds blew this way and that. It snowed. Mostly the animals stayed indoors, living on the food they had stored up. One day, a wolf sat on the rock that was Sylvester and howled because he was hungry. Then the snows melted, the earth warmed up in the spring sun, and things budded. Leaves were on the trees again. Flowers showed their young faces. Well, Sylvester just feels hopeless. He thinks he's going to be a rock forever. What do you think? Make a prediction about where the story is going to go next. Do you think he'll be a rock forever? So again, you're gonna continue in your journal, and you're gonna say, I predict. Don't forget your finger spacing. I predict that Sylvester will or will not be a rock forever. Okay, pause the video now, make your prediction, then resume the video and see if your prediction was correct. One day in May, Mr. Duncan insisted that his wife go with him on a picnic. Let's cheer up, he said. Let us try to live again and be happy even though Sylvester, our angel, is no longer with us. They went to Strawberry Hill. Mrs. Duncan sat down on the rock. The warmth of his own mother sitting on him woke Sylvester up from his deep winter sleep. How he wanted to shout, Mother, Father, it's me, Sylvester. I'm right here. But he couldn't talk. He had no voice. He was stone dumb. Okay, let's make one more prediction. So Mr. Duncan has told Mrs. Duncan, let's go on a picnic, let's try to make our lives continue, and let's cheer up. So they're on their picnic. What do you think is going to happen while they're on their picnic? Make a prediction. Resume the video and see if you're correct. Mr. Duncan walked aimlessly about while Mrs. Duncan set out the picnic food on the rock. Alfalfa sandwiches, pickled oats, sassafras salad, Timothy compote. Suddenly, Mr. Duncan saw the red pebble. What a fantastic pebble, he exclaimed. Sylvester would have loved it for his collection. He put the pebble on the rock. They sat down to eat. Sylvester was now as wide awake as a donkey that was a rock could possibly be. Mrs. Duncan felt some mysterious excitement. You know, Father, she said suddenly, I have the strangest feeling that our dear Sylvester is still alive and not far away. I am, Sylvester wanted to shout, but he couldn't. If only he had realized that the pebble resting on his back was the Magic Pebble. Oh, how I wish he were here with us on this lovely May day, said Mrs. Duncan. Mr. Duncan looked sadly at the ground. Don't you wish it too, Father? She said. He looked at her as if to say, "How can you ask such a question?" Mr. and Mrs. Duncan looked at each other with great sorrow. "I wish I were myself again. I wish I were my real self again," thought Sylvester, and in less than an instant he was. You can imagine the scene that followed, the embraces, the kisses, the questions, the answers, the loving looks, and the fond exclamations. When they had eventually calmed down a bit and had gotten home, Mr. Duncan put the Magic Pebble in an iron safe. Someday they might want to use it, but really, for now, what more could they wish for? They all had all that they wanted. The end.